Back on June 12th, 2020, I made a video that was titled WTF Bungie, I Can't Come Back Now. And the context of that video was me being upset because they were removing the campaign missions from the game, from the Red War, Curse of Osiris, and Warmind, so that when a new and returning player like myself would come into the game, you would start mid-story and understand very little context about what was going on in the game. If you want more context for this video, I would suggest going back and watching that video. A lot of the information in it is still relevant to this day, as they haven't fixed the issue that they caused. And in that video, I said that I wasn't going to come back to Destiny until they fixed the issue, until they brought the campaign missions back into the game, and that they actually gave returning and new players the context and the reminders that they needed to continue on with the story of Destiny, especially as it ramps up in Beyond Light. Now, that video still gets views, it still gets likes, still gets a lot of comments about people agreeing with my points, which I appreciate. But I recently, at the start of Season of the Lost, which is the current season in the current expansion of Destiny, have put in just shy of 250 hours since the beginning of the season. Now, that's a lot of hours. That is a lot of hours. A lot of my friends have said, "Will, you have a problem?" To which I say to them, "No, you have a problem." But I felt very disingenuous because on one hand, I was having an insane amount of fun with Destiny 2, and I'm not an absolute blast, and I'm loving this game. But on the other hand, I had a public video that was still getting likes and views and comments about how I was right and that Destiny messed up and that they need to fix this. And I felt like I needed to update my YouTube channel with a more relevant video saying, I still believe in what I said in that video, but I'm now playing Destiny again, and here are the reasons why, and also here are the issues the game still has if you're thinking about jumping back into Destiny. So, if you want context for this video, I would suggest going back and watching that video. The links will be in the description below. So the issues, the reason I'm come back to Destiny is because the genuine second-by-second gameplay of Destiny is fantastic. It still is fantastic. I still think it's some of the best gunplay in any shooter. I still think it's some of the best loot and loot grind in any loot game. I absolutely adore it. It's fantastic. And honestly, with the introduction of seasons, which we'll get onto later, it's just getting better and better in my opinion. The other factor that got me crawling back is that I'm a massive lore nerd. I've always loved the lore of Destiny, even if the story was a bit lax. And that has done a full 180. The lore and the story have really collided. Destiny have figured out their storytelling, in my opinion, and I absolutely adore where they're going with it and how they're telling the player the story. That's why I'm back. I watched the conference for Season of the Lost and the new expansion, the Witch Queen, and I was like, alright, Destiny, you got me. Alright, I'm coming back. God damn it. And then I dragged about 6 of my friends with me, and they all love me for it. Honest. So, Destiny 2 still has massive gaping issues in terms of its lore and its context to its lore. It also has issues with how it treats new and returning players is very backwards. So I dragged myself and Kane, who are returning players. Reedy's a returning player, Kimbo's a returning player, and then a few new players and a few other players as well as teaming up with a few existing players. So I do not know, out of all the 6 to 8 people that I now play Destiny with, there is not one of the returning / new players that does not think that Destiny's new / returning player experience is messy AF. It is a big mess. It is not good. It is not well constructed. And one of the issues with it is the second that you load up Destiny, if you have access to Beyond Light and you have access to Destiny 2, what it'll do is it'll put you into the very first mission of the newest season. So if you're a new player wanting to jump in, it'll jump you in at the very, very newest bit of story content. And it is so confusing. As a returning player and players, I don't know one person who was like, oh yeah, I know what's going on. All of us were absolutely baffled. I'm not going to do any major spoilers, but there was a guy who should have been dead. There was a guy who was, as last we saw, a friend of ours. And there was like a big baddie. And we were like, what the hell is going on? What is... It was so confusing. It really was confusing. And that shouldn't be a thing. They really need to set the experience for a new and returning player so that the actual experience of the game fits into a coherent storyline, because it helps guide players through the game. Now, they, like I said earlier, they still haven't fixed the issues that they caused. What they did is they removed the planets, Io, Titan, Mercury, Mars, and then removed the area Leviathan ship area, or raid. And they also removed all PvE activities from the game, which were inside those areas, and all the campaigns to do with those areas. So the Red War, which is the very starting campaign of Destiny 2, Curse of Osiris and Warmind, which are the 2 following mini expansions, are completely gone, as well as obviously Destiny 1, which is a completely different game. So you're lacking a lot of context for things as you go into Forsaken. The beginning of Forsaken, there are some really big, heavy-hitting moments for long-term Destiny players you can actually get quite choked up on. But new players and returning players don't have any context for that. And it, in my opinion, it's real downer. So one of the first things I would like them to do is they need to create a synopsis or a broad overview of what's going on in the game. Now, what they have done in the latest season, which is an improvement, it's still nowhere near as good as it should be. So one thing they've done is they've added in this timeline feature, which does tell you what happens when in the story. From the Red War, through Curse of Osiris and the Warmind, and then to things that are actually in the game, to Forsaken, and Shadowkeep, Beyond Light, and also it tells you what seasonal content happened where. Now we'll move on to seasonal content in a minute, because the structure of that is also quite important for context and story-wise, and I don't like some of the things that are missing. So they do try and add in what happened in these expansions, but it's only like two paragraphs, and what I think would actually be better suited is maybe a 20 to 30 minute video, explain like an intro video inside the timeline that would actually help with what happens in those expansions, so you can get up to date and have a bit more context for these things. Now, one thing the timeline does do is it gives you an idea of what happened when, so you can go, if you care, you can go and research that. Some of my friends didn't care and were like, not that bothered. If I have any questions, Will's a massive lore nerd, so I'll ask Will. And questions have been asked and answered. And what I did was I went back and I used the timeline to go and watch about 11 hours of videos, because I'm absolutely a nerd, on what happened, when it happened, why it happened, who's who, and I got context for what's going on right now in the game, so I'm up to date and can carry on. But in my opinion, you shouldn't have to go and watch external videos, no matter how amazing they are, because honestly, I think the guy's name is, I'll link it all in the description below, but I think his name is, my name is Bear, or Bear, and he does a fantastic job of explaining everything just to, up to Season of Arrivals. Again, we'll get on to seasons in a minute. He does a fantastic job and really got me up to speed, but I don't believe that a game should have its shortcomings fixed by a community. I think that the game should have everything added internally. So that is one of the biggest issues right now, and it's an issue they kind of have caused themselves, where the game, just for returning a new player, doesn't have a lot of context for what's going on right now. So, as well as that, for returning new players, one of the other issues is the amount of stuff the game throws at you all at once. It will throw at you all the recent seasonal stuff, all the seasonal stuff from this expansion, and all the Forsaken campaigns, the Beyond Light campaigns, the Shadowkeep campaigns, and doesn't give you an actual structure of what you should be playing and when and how. I don't want the game to hold my hand. Right? I don't want the game to hold my hand. But what I would like is for it to say, okay, do Forsaken, do Shadowkeep, and then move on. And it does kind of say that with the timeline, but the timeline is hidden in the top right hand corner. It doesn't actually look like a button. It just looks like a nice logo, and it's not as easy. What I actually would like is for when you enter the game, it to have, say, right, we suggest you start with Forsaken, you go on to Shadowkeep, then you go on to Beyond Light, and you move through the seasons. But it doesn't do that. It just throws everything at your face at once. And it can be a lot. It can be very confusing. You don't know what you're doing when you're doing it. And it has taken me and my friends 50 hours collectively to sort of help each other understand how the game is structured and what we should do doing when we should playing it. And it's like having a jigsaw where half the pieces all look the same, and they just throw them all at you, and then on top of throwing a jigsaw at you, they added in 4 or 5 other jigsaw puzzles that are separate, and but make up a whole picture, and it's a little confusing. But we managed to get there. We managed to pull through and figure out what's going on, and the ones of us who care are working through all the old content as well, catching up on everything. And the ones who don't are just asking questions and when they want/need. So, seasonal content. Seasonal content is, in my opinion, a fantastic way that this game has expanded how it runs content. It feels, in my opinion, a lot more like Path of Exile than a normal MMO like Final Fantasy, let's say. Where Final Fantasy will have a patch, and a patch will have story content and activities to do, if it's raids or new areas and zones or story. Now, Destiny does a very similar thing to that, but it's inside these seasons. Each season has a new story that will carry you through to the next season, and the next expansion will carry on the story, a bit like Final Fantasy 14's patches. And then each season will also have its own mechanics, its own weapons, its own events and activities to do inside that seasonal event. They'll have its own currency, and it feels a lot like Path of Exile, with every 3 months their new patch having a new thing to do, a new set of abilities and a new set of maps, or maybe a continuation of the end game and stuff like that. And it really does feel like that, and I absolutely adore it. Now, the problem is, for story and context wise, Forsaken has 3 seasons. It has Season of the Forge, Season of the Drifter, and I can't even read the last season. It has a 3rd season, which is something to do with the Cabal. And there are only tiny things from these seasons that are still left. So Season of the Drifter, you have the Drifter. Season of the Forge, you have Ada and the ability to talk to her and interact with her. But the actual story of those seasons is gone. It's completely removed. And then Shadowkeep, you have Season of the Undying, Season of Dawn, Season of the Worthy, and then Season of Arrivals. Now, everything from Season of the Forge to Season of the Worthy could be put into a bucket of side content or not massive story content. I think there's some stuff in Season of the Worthy that's quite important. Maybe even Season of the Dawn with Saint 14 again. Actually, yeah, no, Season of the Dawn and Season of the Worthy definitely have some bits in there that are very important to the story. But you can't access them anymore. You can't get access to them. So the only way of understanding what happened in those previous seasons is by watching videos online. Because the synopsis that they give you in the timeline is just not good enough. It's frankly just not good enough. There's not enough there. So they really need to be adding something in-game to help new and returning players get up to date with what's going on. Then you have Season of Arrivals. Season of Arrivals has some really big things happen in it. Really big things. And I feel like it was the start of them getting their feet on the ground when it comes down to how they structure the seasonal content. But it has some really big things in it. And again, it's not here anymore. You can't play Season of the Arrivals. The story content doesn't exist in the game, as far as I'm aware. 250 hours of playing this game, and I can't find any of the seasonal content for Forsaken or Shadowkeep. Then we move on to the Traveler Healed event. I had to Google that. I had to YouTube watch that. Quite a long event. But again, it's a massive turning point in the Traveler's story after the Red Legion. After the Red War and the Red Legion expansions. But then you don't know what happened in the Red War and the Red Legion and all this lot. And then you have the Traveler healing, and you have no context for that, or you don't even know what's happened, like it's gone on. And again, it can be this massive thing that happens in the storyline of Destiny 2 just isn't talked about, that you don't have any context for it. And again, I think that needs to be fixed. So then you move on to Beyond Light. And they, in my opinion, as someone who's returning, really hit the ground running with this one and figured out how they want to structure seasons and figure out how they want to structure story. And as you jump into Beyond Light, you have a new campaign, you have new seasons with the Season of the Hunt, you have massive story implications with what happens in the Season of the Hunt. Honestly, massive, shocking moments and some fantastic story beats and absolutely brilliant. And then you can move on to Season of the Chosen, Season of the Splicer, and the season we're in right now, which is Season of the Lost. And everything from Beyond Light forward, apart from how it's presented to a player, is done very well. Okay, as a player who bought the deluxe edition, and I'm thinking about doing a video in the future about the monetization of Destiny, what I think about it, and if you want to get into Destiny, what I think you need to purchase to be able to play properly. Because there is a thing, there is in my opinion, a way of doing it. But buying Beyond Light and the deluxe edition will give you access to Beyond Light and every single season, even if the season is not running. So I'm in Season of the Lost, but I have access to Season of the Hunt, Season of the Chosen, and Season of the Splicer. And this is exactly what I want. I can go back and I can play Season of the Hunt, and I can finish the story of Season of the Hunt. I can update myself. I can get all the relevant information. And I can do the activities and the seasonal content of that season as well, which is fantastic. And then I can go on to Season of the Chosen, Season of the Splicer, and I can completely update myself with everything that's going on, and I can be ingrained in the world as I enter Season of the Lost. And I can start Season of the Lost and be like, wow, fantastic, these story beats are on, go, 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 go. And this expansion is done really, really, really well. But I'm worried that next expansion, which is the Witch Queen, comes out in February, is we're going to have an issue where they're going to remove the seasons from Beyond Light. And then all the context going into the Witch Queen, and there's some massive context here that is needed, in my opinion, for the Witch Queen, is going to be lost. And all the new players jumping into the new Destiny expansion, being like, I haven't played in ages, let's jump in and have a play and go to the game and love it, are going to be so confused with what's going on. And it's going to be really frustrating for them. That's what worries me, is we don't know what's going to happen to the seasons moving forward, on how they plan to deal with the seasons moving forward. I don't think they have to keep them in the game the way they are now in its absolute entirety. In fact, I think if you did keep them in this game in its entirety, it wouldn't be a great idea. I think that they need to be consolidated into sort of hour, 2 hour long story snippets for the people who want to catch up, and for the people who don't care, they can just ignore them, or mark that they tick them off. They say, no, I don't want to look at that, and tick them off in a menu somewhere, and therefore you don't have to look at them, or they're not on your screen. But for the people that really care about lore and the story in the Destiny universe and want to get back into it, because it is getting very good and very exciting, I think they need to stay in the game. And what worries me is the fact that the Forsaken and Shadowkeep's seasons have been removed. So I am worried about what's going to happen with this season's moving forward. Generally though, and as a conclusion, because I've rambled on for ages now, as I love what Destiny and Bungie are doing. I love the direction they're moving in. I love the seasons. But they still, a year, 2 years ago, it was a year ago, they caused issues with the release of Beyond Light. They caused issues with the release of Beyond Light, and they shot themselves in the foot a little bit with removing campaign and context. And it's still an ongoing issue to this day. It is an issue I think they are aware of, and they are fixing. For instance, the introduction of the timeline has helped this, but I feel like more needs to be done. I hope with every season moving forward, they add an update a little bit more to help new and returning players. But it is definitely an issue, and my issues I have with my WTF Bungie I Can't Come Back Now videos are still very valid. If you want to jump into Destiny and you don't want to have to watch 11 hours of videos or whatever I did in the end, then I don't think Destiny is there for a lore standpoint. I think to really enjoy the lore of Destiny, you are going to actually have to watch a lot of hours of videos to understand what's going on. And the Destiny community, the lore community around Destiny, are really trying their hardest to make it as accessible as possible. And it's a note that Bungie really needs to take in. If you just want to shoot the game, shoot guns, get lore, play activities, do raids, I cannot state how incredible Destiny is for that right now. The Presage quest lines, the exotic quest lines are like mini raids. They've added in dungeons that are like 3-man raids. They are brilliant to go in blind with. They are very fantastic to work out and figure out how to beat these things. They're brilliant. They have promised to focus development time on these activities like dungeons, so that we will be receiving more of them more consistently in the future, which is just I'm so excited for. So from a gameplay standpoint, I don't know if Destiny has a bad bone in its body. I feel like the only issues Destiny has is from a lore and context standpoint, and the experience of a new player coming in to the game can be very confusing and in some cases a little misleading. So yeah, but that's my thoughts on Destiny, guys. I felt like I really had to update you guys because Like I said, the video was getting a lot of more and more views and comments, and I felt really bad that I was sinking so much time into a game that on the public eye, I was slamming and said I wouldn't play, but then I was actually playing it. So thanks for watching, guys. If you have liked this video, like and subscribe. I am thinking about doing more content for Destiny 2 because it's this game I'm really quite passionate about. I'm putting a lot of time in, and I want to try and support the game as much as I can. So thanks again, guys. I will speak to you soon, and yeah, have a great day.